The wind howls like a starving animal. Across the white emptiness of the Ice Age plain, frost moves like smoke, twisting, whispering, devouring breath. The night is endless. The moon, swollen and cruel, hangs over a world made of bone and silence. Somewhere beneath that pale wilderness, a human heartbeat still dares to exist. A small group huddles in the dark, their bodies shivering beneath layers of fur stitched by hand and hope. The ground beneath them is frozen iron. Every breath turns to needles of glass. Their fire has burned down to a weak pulse of red, one spark away from extinction. A child stirs. A woman presses her body closer to his, trying to trap the last trace of warmth between their skins. They do not move for hours. Even breathing too deeply could mean losing heat. Every sound beyond their cave feels like death coming closer. The crack of ice, the growl of a predator, the sigh of wind whispering through bones. And yet, they slept. Night after night, in temperatures that could kill within minutes. They dreamed, healed, and survived. How did they do it? How did fragile human flesh outlast a world built to erase it? 12,000 years ago, the Ice Age ruled the Earth. A time when Europe, Asia, and the Americas were locked beneath glaciers taller than cathedrals. Winter wasn't a season. It was existence itself. Temperatures dropped below 40 degrees Celsius. Winds carved the land into frozen scars, and yet, humans did not vanish. They built fires, made tools, gave birth, and dreamed under the same stars we see tonight. Archaeologists have unearthed evidence of human camps, stretching from Siberia to Patagonia, places where even modern survival suits would fail. But the strangest discovery is not what they built, it's how they slept. Bones of ancient beds carved from mammoth tusks, layers of animal skins stitched with sinew and woven grass, circular pits lined with ash, and as if someone had buried warmth itself into the earth. And yet, there's no sign of insulation as we know it, no architecture, no thick shelter walls, only small primitive enclosures, surrounded by deathly cold. So how did they survive the nights? How did the human body rest when the world outside could freeze flesh solid in minutes? For decades, scientists dismissed it as luck, claiming migration, fires, or animal hides explained everything. But then came the contradictions. Camps where there was no fire residue, skeletons showing no frostbite, signs of peaceful sleep. Not struggle. It made no sense. The conditions were lethal. Yet their bodies told another story, one of adaptation beyond logic, a silent mastery of cold itself. And that's the question buried beneath the ice. Did Ice Age humans possess a survival secret we've forgotten? Because the evidence reveals something astonishing. It began in 2017, in a Siberian valley where temperatures still plunged to 60 degrees. A research team, digging through permafrost near the Yana River, uncovered something that defied every textbook idea of early human survival. Beneath a layer of ancient mammoth bones, they found traces of human bedding, a compressed mat of grass, fur and ash fused together by time and ice. Under microscopes, the grass fibers revealed burn marks at microscopic scales, not from open fire but from gentle, sustained heat. It was as if warmth had risen from beneath the bed itself. Nearby, circular pits filled with layers of charcoal and animal fat showed residues of controlled thermal reaction, primitive heat, batteries buried under sleeping areas. Carbon dating placed them at 31,000 years old, thousands of years before the invention of agriculture, metallurgy, or even structured housing. The discovery forced scientists to reconsider everything about Ice Age life. These weren't desperate wanderers clinging to firelight. They were engineers of the invisible, masters of heat, airflow, and energy conservation long before recorded history. A similar finding soon emerged from the Czech Republic's Dolní Věstonice site. Remnants of dwellings lined with mammoth, bones and walls coated in a mysterious clay ash mixture. When recreated in modern labs, that mixture radiated heat slowly, for over 8 hours after a fire was extinguished. It acted like thermal stone, storing energy through the night, and then came the clincher, the discovery of sleep hollows in France's Bruniquel cave, where humans had arranged stalagmites into circular enclosures. Infrared scans revealed trapped heat patterns, preserved for millennia in the mineral residue. They weren't just sleeping on the earth, they were sleeping with it. These Ice Age shelters weren't shelters at all. They were thermal ecosystems, designed to breathe, conserve, and remember warmth, and that's only the beginning. The genius of Ice Age survival was not an invention, but an observation. They watched how nature handled cold, how a fox burrowed into snow and slept warm, how mammoths huddled in circles, trapping body heat, how the earth itself never truly froze below a certain depth. From those silent lessons, they reverse-engineered the environment. Archaeologists now believe that their sleeping pits, circular depressions carved into the ground, were part of a sophisticated thermal system. The design was simple, but mathematically perfect. By digging just deep enough to reach stable subsoil temperature, then layering furs and dried moss over ash and embers, they created a ground heat reservoir. The warm air from their own breath condensed along the roof of the enclosure, forming droplets that froze into a natural insulation shell. Every night, the system recycled their body heat, the first closed-loop temperature regulation known to humankind. Even the shape of their shelters mattered. Most were domed, like the curve of an animal's rib cage. This wasn't aesthetic, it was aerodynamic. The dome trapped warm air at its center, while vents at the edges directed cold currents outward. When modern engineers tested scaled replicas, the temperature inside stayed a full 18 degrees C and warmer than outside, without a single open flame. Their use of materials was just as deliberate. Animal hides served not only as covers but as biological membranes, like breathing, moisture-resistant layers that regulated humidity. Mammoth fat, smeared between skins, worked as a crude but effective sealant, waterproof, windproof, and flame-resistant. But what they did next changed everything. They began to control light. Charcoal fragments near sleeping areas weren't random. They were pigment traps, used to absorb sunlight during the day and slowly release warmth after dusk. Combined with reflective surfaces made of ice-polished bone, these created a primitive version of radiant heating. To the modern eye, their world seems primitive, but beneath the frost lay precision. They understood air pressure, temperature gradients, and material properties, not through equations but through the poetry of necessity. They turned nature into architecture. Without blueprints, without tools, without words, the Ice Age may have been merciless, but its people were colder only in body or never in brilliance. The pattern didn't end in Siberia. It echoed across oceans, mountains, and centuries, like a buried memory of warmth that humanity refused to forget. In northern Spain's El Castillo caves, prehistoric hearths were arranged in geometric spirals. Each spiral corresponded to airflow, heat rising, circulating, and returning. Tests showed the design reduced smoke and kept temperatures stable for up to 10 hours, a system identical to those found in Ice Age Siberia. Half a world away, thousands of miles east in Japan's Kamikuroiwa site, excavations revealed hollowed-out chambers beneath shelters. Inside, scientists found layers of charcoal ash and crushed seashells, a combination that emitted long, slow thermal radiation. These weren't random fire pits. They were designed heat sinks. The people here had never seen Siberia, and yet they built the same invisible machines. In North America's Yukon Basin, Paleo-Indians constructed sleeping rings lined with animal fat and clay. When burned briefly at dusk, the fat created a radiant glow, heating the surrounding soil. Even when the flames died, the ground stayed warm until dawn. The exact same technique was later discovered among early Finnish and Sami cultures, proof that this technology traveled through memory, not maps. It was as if the knowledge moved faster than migration itself. An unspoken science passed through instinct and blood. Every continent carried its version of the same equation. Cold plus human, innovation. These shared survival designs hint at a global intelligence, not the genius of cities or empires, but of collective memory. The Ice Age may have fractured the world with ice, but beneath it, humankind was quietly united by one idea. Warmth is not given, it's made. And with each new site, the pattern deepens. Every pit, every hearth, every fossilized bed tells the same story. that long before we built civilizations, we built systems, not to conquer nature, but to cooperate with it. The further scientists look, the clearer it becomes. This wasn't coincidence, it was legacy, the architecture of survival itself. Imagine a night 30,000 years ago. The wind is screaming outside a shelter no larger than a modern tent. Inside, shadows flicker across walls made of bone and hide. A mother kneels near a shallow pit, glowing with the faint red breath of buried embers. She adds a few drops of fat. Not wood, not coal, but life itself. The warmth spreads beneath her knees. Her child sleeps on a bed of fur, tiny chest rising and falling beneath layers of stitched skin. The mother places a hand near his nose, feeling the air, not for comfort, but to measure the temperature by instinct. If the breath felt too cold, she would shift her own body closer, sacrificing her heat for his. Across from her, an old man carves grooves into bone, perhaps a calendar, perhaps a teaching tool. Every line marks another night survived. His fingers tremble, but not from age, from memory. He knows that the smallest mistake, an ember misplaced, a vent left open, could turn warmth to smoke, smoke to poison, and life to silence. Yet there's peace in their faces. The Ice Age world outside is merciless, but inside, they've built a rhythm, a ritual of sleep, breath, and trust. When the mother finally lies beside her child, she drapes her arm across him, their shared heat radiating into the darkness. They do not fear the cold anymore, they have tamed it. For them, survival isn't an act of strength, but it's communion. Fire, earth, air, and flesh move together in a quiet choreography of endurance. Each night knowledge passes, not through words, but through gestures, a father showing his son how to layer ash before sleeping, a daughter tracing the cracks in the stone to find where warmth lingers longest. In that simple transfer, warmth teaching warmth, humanity's first science was born. A legacy written not in ink, but in temperature. The further scientists studied the remains of Ice Age humans, the more the body itself began to tell the story. What they discovered wasn't magic, it was adaptation, written directly into bone, blood, and breath. Many skeletons from Arctic and European sites showed unusually dense capillary channels in the fingertips and toes, suggesting improved circulation for heat management. Their skin cells, reconstructed through genetic sequencing, carried variants of a gene called UCP1, known for producing brown fat, the body's own internal heater. Modern humans still have it, but in Ice Age ancestors it worked like a hidden furnace, burning calories not for movement, but for warmth. Their breathing patterns may have been different. 2. Studies of skull cavities revealed slightly larger sinuses and nasal chambers, natural heat exchangers that warmed cold air before it reached the lungs. Every inhale was preheated. Every exhale conserved moisture. A biological insulation system evolved for endurance. Even their diets fueled this silent technology. Isotope analysis of bone collagen showed extreme lipid consumption, meaning their meals were almost 70% fat, not gluttony, but engineering fat burns slow, steady, and radiates heat through the bloodstream. The Ice Age human wasn't fighting cold, he was metabolically designed to live inside it. And then came the strangest discovery of all, in the chemical. Traces of ash embedded in the enamel of teeth. They weren't accidental. These people had inhaled fine soot particles, but not from choking fires. It was deliberate exposure to microcarbon, which may have triggered the immune and thermogenic responses in the body, a primitive form of controlled environmental conditioning. Modern scientists recreated similar exposures in lab settings. The result? A measurable increase in core body temperature and oxygen efficiency. In essence, Ice Age humans had found a way to train their biology, turning breath, diet, and habit into the ultimate thermal armor. The deeper scientists looked, the more impossible it seemed. The warmth wasn't just in their shelters or their fires, it was in their blood. In 2021, researchers at the University of Copenhagen attempted something extraordinary. They built a full-scale replica of an Ice Age dwelling, complete with mammoth bone frame, animal hide insulation, and a shallow heat pit lined with fat-soaked clay. No modern fuel, no electric tools, only the techniques unearthed from Ice Age sites. For 3 weeks, volunteers lived inside the reconstruction in Arctic conditions. Outside, the temperature dropped below 25 degrees, and inside, the temperature never fell below +5 even when the fire burned out completely. Sensors placed beneath the bedding detected continuous warmth, radiating from the soil hours after ignition. Infrared cameras confirmed what the ancients already knew. Their shelters breathed heat. The next phase of the experiment pushed even further. Volunteers consumed a high-fat diet modeled on Ice Age food ratios. Nearly 70% animal fat, 25% protein, 5% carbohydrates. Their bodies responded within days. Core temperature increased by 0.6 degrees, metabolism accelerated by 15%, and brown fat activity surged. In short, their biology began echoing that of prehistoric humans. Then came the ash test. A small group inhaled trace levels of safe carbon microparticles to simulate smoke exposure. The results shocked scientists. A measurable rise in heat shock proteins, cellular agents that protect against hypothermia. The very thing we call smoke damage may once have been a biological signal of strength. Across labs in Canada, Finland, and Japan, variations of these experiments have confirmed the same outcome. When ancient methods are replicated faithfully, they work not symbolically, not partially, perfectly. Their heating systems were efficient, sustainable, and biologically harmonized, performing without pollution, fuel, or electricity. The Ice Age was never just endured, it was engineered. One researcher summed it up best. They weren't primitive. They were efficient in ways we're only starting to rediscover, and as the final tests concluded, one truth became undeniable. It worked, flawlessly. We sleep today surrounded by artificial warmth, furnaces, blankets, insulated walls, yet somehow we are colder than ever. Our bodies no longer remember how to survive the night without machines. Our cities hum with comfort, but our instincts lie buried, fossilized beneath convenience. 30,000 years ago, there were no cities, no promises, only the wind, the dark, and the will to live, and somehow, those humans, half-starved, half-frozen, achieved a balance that modern science still struggles to explain. They didn't fight nature. They listened to it. They bent its cruelty into companionship. Every ember, every bed of ash, every breath shared in a cave was not just survival. It was defiance written in warmth. They looked at a world trying to erase them and whispered back through smoke. We endure, and maybe that's the real secret, not brown fat or bone engineering or hidden fire pits, but the idea that intelligence is not born from luxury, it's born from necessity, that the human mind glows brightest in darkness because, when the last flame flickered and the wind howled against the cave mouth, they didn't despair. They trusted the system they built, their earth, their fire, their flesh, and to hold through the night. And every dawn proved them right. Today, as we face our own changing climate, melting ice instead of endless frost, perhaps the lesson is the same. Warmth isn't given. It's made, sustained through knowledge, cooperation, and faith in what came before us. Their greatest invention wasn't fire, it wasn't shelter, it was the refusal to accept impossibility.